Hey everybody, I'm your host, Don Mike Mendoza, and welcome to Producing While Asian. Today's episode is with a very special guest named S.N.R.G, which stands for Some Never Really Get. And S.N.R.G is actually a duo. It's two brothers, originally known as the Super Barrio Brothers, and their names are Bo and Aaron. So they're here today to talk about their collective experience creating S.N.R.G and also their newest brand that they'll talk about in today's episode. Now, we have talked to them before on the blog, so do check out their entry at producingwhileasian.com to get to know a little bit more about their history. But today we're going to talk about what they've been up to in the pandemic. So we hope you enjoy today's conversation on Producing While Asian.
My imaginary friends. My imaginary friends. We like to go out on adventures and meet some new pretenders. My imaginary friends. I want one too. My imaginary friends.
Of course you do.
My imaginary friends. I'm already you.
Here's the scenario.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Hey guys, it's so good to see you in your car, as always.
Well, you said something that was very on brand, and we've been producing our live streams through these roving radio broadcasts.
Yes.
Nice.
That's exactly how we do this.
Because we were doing our radio show and television show in the Philippines called The Point, The Pogey Point with the Super
The
Mario
Pogey
Brothers. I
Point.
speak in LA Stone of SNRGmusic.com.
Yeah, it's pretty much the brief history of us.
Yeah, so this is the revamped
Nice.
version.
You got to take the Pogey on the road. So
Yeah, that's right.
uh,
We're going to bring it to Pittsburgh very soon.
right. So for the people that are listening that aren't Filipino, Pogi means handsome. So we've got two, you can't see them if you're listening to the podcast, but S.N.R.G bros are super handsome guys. So check out our
This is
blog.
of course optional.
We are because
So they've been with us before. So you guys, it's nice to have you back chatting about what's happening in your lives. And for anybody that's curious, you can go to producingwhileasian.com and read about where S.N.R.G came from and what their history is in terms of the arts and being a hip hop duo. But today we're talking about their production experience. And so obviously when you're an artist, sometimes you have to produce your own stuff, and they've done everything under the sun in terms of producing. So we're here to pick their brains and ask
We wear
them
all the hats.
all the
You
hats,
have to.
and they even
Yeah,
make
all the
hats, and you
hats.
can buy their hats. And
Yeah.
so
Yes, you can go to SNRGmusic.com and purchase our physical merch, our hats. You're right. Thank you
exactly.
for that plug, Don Mike. That's why my brother and I, Aaron and I, were just talking about how much we love Don Mike and the support that you've given throughout the years.
Well, I love it. Since we met, it's been just nothing but love. So I'm super excited to hear more. So tell us a little bit, like a quick SparkNotes version for the people that are not going to go to the website and read, because reading is hard sometimes. Tell us like a quick SparkNotes version of where you guys came from in the arts and how you created S.N.R.G and kind of where you're at now and how it connects to you guys as producers.
You want to kick it off?
Well, it started when our study met Tony.
Yeah.
Tony D.
That was a start.
That was pretty much the start of the one.
Yeah, so we like to say, because they ask, when did you guys start this collaborative effort? Because a lot of people don't realize that we're actually brothers.
Because we really are brothers.
Yeah. So we just say, when Tony met RC, and the rest is history. And honestly, our childhood was very much that,
Very much.
throwing ideas back and forth. And I know you're going to, because on Producing While Asian, you talk about the origin story. It goes back to even when we were doing this professionally. We would take our family video camera, right? This is way before cell phones were, had the high definition cameras. We would just take, the tape, and then just like tape over like our sports games, doing action things. Like, Aaron would be doing some like, martial arts moves, and I capture it in super slow motion. So we were producing even when we were kids.
That's awesome. So the question I'm asking all our guests, it's kind of like the one through line in all these podcast episodes is on a scale of 1 to producer or producers, where do you guys fall and why? And the reason why I ask that is because there's no one definition of producer, right? If you're a music producer, it's different from a theater producer, it's different from
Right.
a content producer. So where do you fall on that scale, and like why or why not?
Actually, before we answer that, can I ask you, since you did clarify the different classifications,
Yeah.
how would you interpret that in terms of
Sure.
this specific question? Like producers, like you said, could be different things. Because let me just tell you my first, before we even get into that. My
Yeah.
answer would be, I would say on a scale of 1 to producer, I'd say 11. Just
Mhm.
because just because of the years that we have been producing this professionally.
Right.
11 years we've been producing things professionally. So I would like to hear your interpretation, but that would be my answer. Do you want to give your just
As far as
hot take response yet?
we definitely had to have, I've played so many roles in it that I don't really know.
Yeah.
Like there's so many different roles to take part in. So it's like,
It's true, and that's why I asked you, Don,
Yeah.
Mike,
I
because
can't say what spectrum I'm on because I feel like you have to be that all the time.
Sure.
and the reason why I want to ask you
Mhm.
is because we started, as I said, just messing around with the home video camera, but then when we really started doing this professionally was with our very first run of t-shirts, hats, and jackets with the National Zoo in DC.
Yeah.
So my brother
That's what
designed,
kinda really-
he actually designed this baby panda for anybody who does have the video.
You see the video.
Yeah, this right here. Oh, he's wearing it on his shirt.
The panda that we are rocking at all times, or the panda
Nice.
that has since become like kind of our mascot. The adolescence, we got the bandana all across his face, That kind of, which is crazy too about like the times or whatever too, because the bandanas, all that stuff. I remember it was a huge influence. He was DMX, so it's like
Oh yeah, R.I.P. DMX too.
passing
Mhm.
days, really, like it is like I still can't believe it because he's such a huge impact as far as like my development
As artists,
as
and
an artist.
honestly, he has some great life lessons in his music as well.
Like my relationship with God, all that stuff.
True that. So yeah, going back to your question about just the producer aspect, and we have worn a lot of hats.
Yeah.
Like how do you, especially you being a producer yourself, I mean, how do you categorize, or how would you answer that question?
I consider one being not at all, and producer, of course, being producer. And so, and not at all, not meaning you don't do it, but like that you kind of don't identify as that part of our industry. And so for me, I would say almost like your answer, Bo, like I would say I'd be beyond producer, probably like 15, like on the scale of 1 to 10, just because when you're a producer, I see people as almost the caretaker, like more so than the director, because like you have to make sure the bills are paid, the money's there, people are happy, and like the content is good, and you chose something that people want to be part of, right? So, I would say for me, I define myself as like beyond producer because of all the different moving parts that you're in charge of. And to me, producer means caretaker, and almost like in a weird way parent, because a lot of people come to you
Right.
for advice or guidance, or they yell at you. It's just
Yeah.
what it is. So that's where I would fall on that scale for sure. So yeah,
Nice.
I mean, your answers were great as they are, if you don't want to change them, because that it makes sense.
We'll keep it. Like I said, we're used to doing these live streams and live TV. Not that you ever really truly get used to it, because expect the unexpected, right?
Right.
But yeah, no, for sure. I'm with you. That's definitely how I interpret the question. And it is like that for many artists. You kind of have to take the reins, and
Mhm.
they expect you to guide them in a sense.
So I had a guest on, Tyler Hampong, who is mostly in film, and he told me about his experience creating his own opportunities. And I had the same experience, and I know you guys too. Talk to us a little bit about that kind of work ethic. Like, to be a producer, you have to know how to be on top of your stuff, and like to make sure that you stay organized, especially when you're trying to create your own opportunities, like we said. And
Right.
so tell us about that part of your experience. Like, what kind of motivated you to do that, and what have you gotten from that thus far, being in charge of your own fate, so to speak?
Well, I think you and Tyler hit the nail on the head with regards to creating your own opportunities, because when we moved back from the Philippines the first time, right, before the Hoagie Point. Like we had come back here around the time that we were doing the work for the National Zoo, Smithsonian. We came back and we still had a desire to perform because, as you know, we write, record, produce our music. So we were looking to potentially, get on stage here in the DC area. And what we kept encountering were gatekeepers, if you will.
That's probably
Yeah.
We did have a relationship with, at the time, we were doing the clothing for WKYS 93.9 and their street team. So at the time you had Angie Edge, Quicksilver, Easy Street, Antonio the Cuban Cigar Smoker, everybody that was on the WKYS radio roster at that time. Yeah, 93.9. Oh, DMX is 93.9. No, we were doing stuff for them, right, with clothing, right? But they still made it difficult for us to get on air with our music. Not to say that was their fault. I'm sure the powers that be at Radio One, they have their own process.
Sure.
I'm throwing up the air quotes.
Of course. Right.
But since we couldn't get on the shows, right, because they had to block us hot bars, which we ended up doing, but at the time, before we had those opportunities, we said, you know what? Instead of waiting around, let's just go ahead and research these pop-in local venues. And we literally just walked in. Matter of fact, this is how we did it. And going back to what you and Tyler were talking about, creating opportunities, I just went in to Jam and Java at the time because I had heard that they were the place to do live performances for independent, local DMV artists. So, and I know they had some national acts coming through. I know Lauryn Hill came and did her thing, and there's a lot of big bands like Paramore that were doing their thing. But I just went in and I just introduced ourselves as, well, I said I was the manager for S.N.R.G. I didn't say that I was.
Fake it till you make it.
Tell them that I was actually a part of S.N.R.G.
Right.
I just said that I am a manager of this up and coming,
which was me.
Duo. right.
I was part of that duo.
I Speak and LA Stone, they're really dope artists,
Really great.
from the Philippines.
Coming from the Philippines.
Right, in the Philippines, because they had just been featured on MTV Asia, Mix, right, International.
Oh, Mix.
And
Mix
these
Philippines.
are all real things.
It's all true.
Yeah.
They're all factual
These are all real
statements.
things, but
Right.
KYS wasn't giving us opportunities. We figured we'd put ourselves on actual venues.
Right.
Not be the middleman.
Yeah, we decided to cut the middleman out and say, hey,
not mess with that.
in order for us to get these shows going, we need to probably produce our own. So that's really what prompted that very first show, and we got it locked, booked it. Shout outs to the Brindley brothers and everybody at Jam and Job for taking a chance on this upcoming act. I remember when they finally saw us, because we sold out our first show, and the 300 plus people, right, at Jam and Java in Vienna, Virginia. And when they saw me on stage, they're like, wait a minute, I didn't know you performed. You're part of S.N.R.G. You're
part of S.N.R.G. And I was like the revealing moment. And I was like, we had that was an amazing show.
Yeah. So that we even had the other duck, Cheryl Koo, shout out. She came from the West Coast to do a fashion show. Man, we produced, it was a little runway fashion show for the other duck. We had our music going. We were putting on other local independent artists we believed in. So it was a beautiful moment in our history.
Meeting all the beautiful producers within it, like Cheryl,
Right. Yes. And that's around the time that we met through, well, at the time we were doing shows with Sulu DC, right? Reggie Capico, Alex Senna. We then met you through just doing Latsy Do when you started that. So it's beautiful how all of this is, all of our stories are intertwined.
Yeah, people seem to not, I don't want to say they don't get, but they miss the fact, some never really get. They miss the fact that producers are just people that know a lot of people. and like you get opportunities and you get new material to produce because you've met so many people that it
Right.
just creates new opportunities, right? So, and I can talk about that with just specifically like you guys and me. Like when we met in what, 2012, it's now
Yeah,
almost been
please
10
expound. Let the
years,
people know.
which is
Exactly.
like so weird. Like it doesn't feel like 10 years ago that we met, almost 10 years ago that we met. And so it's like, from there, you just keep contacting each other and you keep telling each other about projects you do, and eventually the stars align and you cross paths and you get to do something together, which,
And the
I
stars have
think
aligned beautifully,
Yeah.
they
especially with
have.
the stuff that we have on tap.
Right, for sure. And that's, a beautiful segue to jump into what you're doing right now, guys. So I know what it is, but the listeners don't know what it is. Talk to us a little bit about the live streams you're doing and your social network. Where did that come from? And I know that's
All
something
right.
that we're starting to work on together, but I know we want to get that out there for people to start following, to know what it is.
Absolutely.
Yes, please.
People to get tuned into your Soul Shout Network. That's focus for a lot of people. That's
Well, it's funny because, okay, so you saw, for people who have the visuals, you see my brother's shirt. He's rocking the baby panda. That's what started us officially. But then you see my shirt. I'm rocking the Soul t-shirt. Okay, so if you see my shirt, if you cannot, here, I'll end the close up right there. Yeah, so you see the Lincoln Memorial, see the Washington Monument, stars and bars with the DC flag. And of course, that right there, that S, that's the Metro line, right? Yeah, so if you see a word in there, it spells the word soul, Soul. And that's because we like to say we're bringing soul back to the city, with each and every production. And we created your social network around the time at the height of the pandemic.
Yeah,
Actually.
because we were actually still trying to figure it all out because we were supposed to do
Right.
jam. We were supposed
Oh,
to do shows, like 3 shows a week, pretty much.
Pretty much.
We had an open mic set up.
Yep.
We had the other the showcase at Jam.
Right, those are because we were
the
playing
things
in
that were
conferences.
slated. These were like the slated things.
Right, but
Like,
the
these are all
big
things, but
shows.
then, like, man, all these opportunities. Like, what are we gonna do with them now? Like, we had these venues, we had the
Right.
place to be with people. And then I remember when people were actually trying to come out a little bit, they tried to get us to do a show. We tried. It wasn't very good turnout.
Well, that's the thing. I mean,
it's dangerous times, So it's like,
yeah, it's a lot of uncertainty,
Yeah.
right? And
Right.
I'm sure you've,
Oh yeah,
faced
I mean,
the same
even with
challenges.
Latido, like our last show before the pandemic in February, I was putting stuff like disclaimers on our website that said, because we didn't know what the guidance was, so it was like,
Right.
you can wear a mask if you want, if that makes you feel safer. And I sounded like a total Trump supporter, where I was like, we'll have hand sanitizer if you want it, I guess. And like
Yeah.
so we didn't know how that
Right.
would
Well,
be, and we still
it
had
was a brand new experience for most and for everybody. The world changed in
Right.
2020, of March 2020, right? So when everything was then canceled on our calendar, MGM National Harbor was taken away. We had all the things, our monthly showcases that we're doing at Gem and Java and Union Stage. Because prior to that, we had just done our album release party at Union Stage, and there was 500 people that were in attendance. I know you were already up in Pittsburgh, but we also used that platform as a charitable fundraiser for those affected by the Taal volcano eruption. So we were able to
was
give
a
that
mess
through our production. What's that?
2020 was a mess. It's like
Oh
that
my
was
God.
only March, and like already like our country exploded because of a volcano, and then there was a pandemic.
I know.
And it's like 3 months in. So anyway, I'm sorry, continue.
It's so crazy how, and then it just kept getting progressively worse, it seemed, in terms of just the turmoil that was happening socially, but also just overall, like how people were kind of dealing with it, right?
And then, of course, we have venues, we have people that want to do things.
Yeah, but not knowing how
to. Kind of try to figure. Of course, we as artists were like, all right, well,
what do we do? There was a lot of soul searching, just to go back to the whole Soul Child network. We
producers, the artists, like, wow, how this is like everything had to stop for us.
Right. And since it stopped, we took that time and really dug deep. I'm talking about there was some serious just self reflection that happened because,
Yeah.
thinking you have, it's crazy because 2020, I'm sure for a lot of folks, people were looking, 2020, is going to be that type of year where everything
Oh,
comes
yeah.
together. Well, no.
Just kidding. Nope.
Yeah. 2020 made things clear.
It made it really clear.
But clear
Yeah.
Fuck you up.
yeah, clear in the sense that you're going to find out whether or not this is
Right.
it really did kind of just weed out a lot of folks. And I think the arts are that
yeah.
our game it's or at least if you're talking about show business or entertainment business, it is a game of attrition, right?
Mhm.
It's those people who can find ways to adjust and fight past the roadblocks.
Right. And people describe 2020 as like this great equalizer kind of thing, and some people don't agree with that, but I personally, I wholeheartedly agree with it. It's like,
Mhm.
2020 was like the testing ground. It was like if you as your work ethic and whatever brands you started as what they are,
Mhm.
if they were strong enough to last year, like you've done something right. Like you've been able to
Right.
get through and pivot and survive. And if you haven't gotten through last year and say, unfortunately, your company closed or you stopped acting or you stopped, making new material, it's not to
Mhm.
say that you're bad at it, but it is to say like, maybe it's not quite your time yet. Like maybe it'll be later.
Sure.
It kind of tested.
No, I agree with that wholeheartedly. It was
Yeah.
a time to recalibrate if
Mhm.
indeed this is something you wanted to pursue.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
Tell me you'll stay, don't walk away from me. I'm watching the sunrise over your face. I'll promise to change, if you run then I'll chase. My fairy tale caught up in a runaway train. My ever after faded, my ever after faded away. She's my ever after faded, my ever after faded away.
Of course, this is I Speak and LA Stone of S.N.R.G music.com, and you're listening to Producing While Asian.
Going back to creating your social network,
Mhm.
us as brothers, as artists, we honestly were ready to hang it all up in terms of our artistry. And a lot of that was because, just out of mere survival, right? You need to figure out, okay, how am I going to be, especially those who have families and mouths to
Mhm.
feed, how am I going to, make enough so that I can support and sustain this life, right? And the life that I'm responsible for, right? The lives that I'm responsible for. So we were talking to Crescendo Studios over in Falls Church, Virginia. Shout outs to Linnell and Eddie.
Luckily, we actually had a deal going with them. Like I said, because we were trying to figure out how we're gonna our road to MGM. They were part of our road to MGM.
Right.
Like part of these,
just getting different people together,
the different communities that we were trying to get involved through Crescendo. So we had this, and we just wanted to,
just like the open mics you talked about. We were going to use that as kind of stepping stones for artists, local artists, to kind of make their way to MGM, the show that we were producing, the big show. So do the open mics, right? And then the open mics at Crescendo Studios, and then doing, let's say, your first showcase or headlining showcase either at Jam and Java or Union Stage, and then getting working your way up
at that
to
point,
MGM National Harbor.
At that point, we had it figured out as far as how if you're gonna make this big ass show, how are you gonna make these pieces fit?
Right.
So we're already figuring that part. Of course, that blows up. At least now we have these pieces. So what do we do with these pieces?
Right. And then that's when we did our drive-in show at Crescendo. And then we're like, okay, this will probably be our last show. We were telling our fans, our supporters, and everybody's like, what? Why? Don't let this pandemic stop you. And that goes back to what you were saying. There was a very serious contemplative moment where we were really ready to, move on. Right. But then the outpouring of support. When September came, we did our drive, and not only did we, pack the parking lot, we had killed it with the live stream sales, virtual tickets. The merch sales spiked for up until about 3-4 weeks after the show, and we're just like, you know what? My brother and I were like, you got to pay attention to the signs,
right?
Like
right.
if we're doing something like this, and people are responding in this manner,
like
Mhm.
all the different relationships we've had along the way. Like how can we? We try to figure out like how we would try to figure it out from like if WKY has never put us on.
right?
They hit, so we had to make our own.
Instead of being
Like we were trying to make a pipeline for local artists.
Right.
That's kind of where that came from.
right, instead of being gatekeepers that were like,
Yeah,
keeping people away,
You kind of
we were kind of like,
hold your hand along.
let's
Mhm.
welcome you in, and let's create opportunities instead of us keeping the resources to
Mhm.
ourselves. Why don't we
Yeah.
open up this for other artists, where we can then become your production team, your one-stop artist workshop, if you will.
And what better way than like now you like the whole audience, whoever watches your social network now, you're seeing like this community building. You're seeing it from the ground up.
From right,
Yeah.
You're seeing this all
from scratch.
happen like real time. So
Mhm.
Mhm.
like this whole community that people claim to be putting on.
Yeah, you lived in
We're
DC,
trying
Don
to
Mike.
make
You know
We're
people
trying
that.
to make documentation.
Yeah, we are documenting
The
it
community together.
Right.
as it
Right.
expands,
As it
because
expands, we want
Yeah.
this documentation, how we're putting it all together to unite us as the soul.
right, the
Mhm.
soul of the city. And
Right.
being in the DC area, how many individuals speak of this community
Oh yes.
building?
Oh, yes.
And look, man, we don't need to mention any names, because we
No,
pay
of course
attention to
not.
what's out there. We already know the people who
I think
are really about
And it's-
helping,
and it's
Yeah.
all- it's-
and the
Mhm.
others.
different. It's all the different,
oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
what I
You know.
I never thought that I would, use the Real Housewives of Atlanta as a source for a quote, but on that show, I think it was Nene Leakes was like, whatever is in the dark comes to light. So
Mhm.
meaning any people or organizations or whatever have you that kind of create that faux community that we're referring to, and we don't have to mention any names because everybody listening to this podcast knows, in their life, in their circle, who those people are.
Uh-huh.
It eventually comes out, it eventually exposes itself. So there's no, I think some people think that producers have to like go out for blood and like find out the people that are bad and like route them out, but it'll take care of itself. And so as long as you focus, which is what you're talking about, like with your social network, as long as you focus on what you think is beneficial and what brings you joy, and in a genuine way, which you guys do, it'll bring its own fruit. And I think people that will tune into your social network will see that. 'Cause
Agreed. And that's why we actually, when we tell artists that come through, because I love that light bulb moment because we tell them like over the phone when we call these artists, say we're producing a show called Your Social Network. So they're hearing your social network.
Yeah.
And then when they get to Crescendo, and they see the big, beautiful stage, they see the lights and the smoke machine going, right? We got the haze machine just making everything look pretty. And then we have our office where we conduct the interview. And then we have the multicam setup, dedicated sound engineer, lighting technicians, just making everything look spectacular.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, hold up.
Boy.
I had no idea it was like this. And then, like, when we explain the whole soul logo, because we tell them, look, if you take time to work on your soul shall find you work. They're just like, hold up. They're just like, wait a minute. And it's so funny. That's when it goes back to my brother saying,
and now they cannot.
now they can't say your social network because they're
Yeah.
trying to break it down to your soul shall network. They really are trying to like emphasize the soul part.
Shall.
The soul is soul shall.
Soul shall.
But you can say your
shall.
social is cool, and they're like, no, yeah, I got it. Your soul shall. Now they're just thinking too hard, but
That's
it's great, man. Like,
that's the fun of it all. We get to, I mean, it's
That eureka moment.
It's been an adventure this whole time because you are dealing with all different minds, all different characters. So,
Yeah, and different types of artistic disciplines, because the shows we've been doing recently, like, we've allowed the artists to bring their vision, and for the most part, we as a production team are just capturing their vision. You know, they, like, through pre-prod discussions and kind of just, you know, working all the logistics out, we tell them, look, we can definitely solve, or, you know, come up with a solution for what you want to see within any, you know, you're given budget, right? Just let us know what you want to see, and then we'll capture that vision. And everybody that has really, you know, taken it upon themselves and, you know, brought their vision, like, it's great to see all the different artistic disciplines that have come and presented themselves on your social network.
It's also a beautiful thing to see like that. Like, once they see what is possible,
they want to come back and do another one.
Do it again. And that's like that excitement. That excitement is what we're looking for.
And that's what makes it all worthwhile for us as producers.
Like, man, that's our show. You know, those are the key feelings for the show.
Right. And we are, not only are we bringing this artistic vision to life, we're also creating a situation where we are making this digital economy, right? We're making it so that there is a viable platform for artists to earn from their creative efforts.
Yeah, because each artist who does their due diligence gets paid.
Yeah, because it is that. Right. Yeah, and if they're selling tickets, they're going to make some money.
It's like they should be. They're making money.
Yep.
Like, they should be off of their art.
Yeah, and even if we've had artists that, let's say, they just broke even, right, through their ticket sales. To them, they're walking away because now they have content.
They got content.
They have content they can use in perpetuity. So they're just investing in their art.
Right.
Yeah, it's professional grade production that they are not. They're getting, like, for the price point.
So really, how do you lose?
Right.
Because we don't want anybody to lose anyway.
That was our main thing anyway. Like my brother said in the beginning, we didn't have anybody mentoring us or taking us under their wing or presenting these types of opportunities. We wish we had somebody like the Super Mario Brothers of S.N.R.G.music.com. You know, someone who said, hey, look, you have this. You can just come and do this.
It's funny.
Instead, you have these people say, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's funny because, like, you do see that, like, it is funny, like, kind of going along the ways you see the cycles. People will come back once they feel like,
oh, yeah.
As long as you stay the path.
If you're consistent.
You stay consistent. Yeah. Somehow, these people will try to come back into your life.
Because that's another thing the pandemic proved time and time again, is that people show their colors, their true colors. And, you know, it's funny. It's funny because people act like we're, you know, we don't see these things or we don't pay attention, but
I mean, or that you don't remember. You know,
don't remember,
that you don't remember what happened before, or that you were, like, not tuned into the subtleties of a potentially or a previous bad working relationship, and then all of a sudden a world event happens, and then they're like, this is the opportunity to, like, maybe ask to come back into that space with them, even though I haven't heard from them in 5 years, and you're just like, thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah. Oh, you know, let me look at my schedule.
Yeah, let me check my calendar. But yeah, I get you.
The fact that it just happens more often than not is that's already a sign. That's a red flag.
Because that's the thing. Like, we like I said before, like, we go back to it, we don't want any losers. We don't want anybody to lose. Like, we want you to, like, we're not competitors. Paid off your art. We want you to get paid off.
Right.
You know, like, this is an opportunity for you to do this for yourself.
I think that's what has gotten lost in translation for some other folks. They look at us as competition, thinking,
that's the thing. Like,
you know, guys are trying to take my slice of the pie. No, man, we're trying to bake a whole new pie so that you can have. We're not fighting over crumbs here, man. Because currently, that's what it is. People are fighting over crumbs. We want to create a whole new situation that people can, if you do it right, like my brother was saying, and like we have been outwardly pushing and promoting. You can turn this into a viable, thriving economy, especially in the art scene where everybody's hurting in the art industry.
Everybody's hurting.
Right.
I mean, just all the bad blood that, like, you see being creative. It's like, it's crazy.
Yeah, because artists, we just have a bigger emotional response to things, and I think that a lot of the kind of interpersonal conflicts that we've run into in our industry kind of all stem back to that. Just because like we're we're people that are, I don't want to say normal, but people that aren't quite in the artistic world, they will sometimes think logically first before they decide to emotionally react, or they have some way of tapping into control. I will speak personally, like I react with my heart first before my head most of the time, and so I like lose my shit. But like I think a lot of it comes from
It's
that
natural.
because we're just emotional creatures in that sense. And so all that to say, in the pandemic, you know another guest was talking about like, oh, there's going to be some people that I will leave behind in the pandemic, and what you were mentioning earlier about people showing their true colors, it really, it applies in all situations. Like this is a bad traumatic situation, and then you realize who your real friends are, and you realize who is worthwhile and staying connected to, because especially in the arts, like you should strive to at least not piss a lot of people off. When you piss off
That
enough
would be good.
people start talking about you. And I think it's a risk to piss
Especially
off
if it's
even
a
one.
teacher.
Yeah, even one person.
Yeah.
If you piss off even one person, like you don't know who they know. And like I'm guilty too. Like I've pissed people off, and but as long as there's a way that you handle it well, maybe people won't leave you behind in the pandemic. But
Yeah, I think that's the key, though. You said
you
it in terms of just handling it, right? Because I think that has also happened with
Right.
us, and through some of the artists that we have attempted to assist. They, as producers, they think that we're getting all the money. Like we're,
Right. Actually,
doing,
we get no
doing this
money.
and just getting
Sometimes
like the
sometimes
lion's
negative
share.
money.
No, a lot of the times you, the artists, are getting all the money.
More.
You as a
Right.
producer understand.
All we are asking for as producers that we cover the overhead, the cost.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
We're
It's
yeah.
And they're not putting any
exactly.
money up, right? A lot of the times we're actually fronting our own money,
not
Right.
their name.
right? And our
It's
reputation.
not their
Mhm.
name. It's not their relationship that's creating this opportunity.
But then they want to get mad because, oh, this was a smashing success. All they see is, okay, the people that are there thinking that, oh man,
money.
right? Like,
Right.
oh man, these
Oh,
cats
right.
are,
What is that?
they're eating off of my efforts. Hey, we did this together first and foremost, but also
Right.
we were the ones who leveraged our relationships and really put this all together for. And once again, it could
Right.
be just a simple misunderstanding or miscommunication.
Of course. Of
Some
course.
people will just
Go
automatically.
ahead and keep thinking that way, and
Like explode, right.
Also, as artists, they're also stuck in their ways.
Sure.
They
Mhm.
want to. Some people are just bullheaded. They just want to stay in.
And they need things to be their way.
You
Like
gotta stay consistent.
we've had artists say, "This is my show. This is my album release party." Like,
Oof.
yes,
Oof.
but you realize you came to us
You realize
asking
Right.
us to book
Yeah.
the spot,
Yeah.
create a situation where we're
Right.
taking care of all the logistics from,
Yeah.
even if it's just getting wireless mics.
okay,
Yeah.
People don't understand how it costs.
You can have the show at
Yeah.
6 p.m. on a Tuesday.
Right.
Oh yeah, right,
Tuesday
or
night.
prime time slots, right? So they're like, "Oh, I could have
Mhm.
done this on my own," not realizing, okay, well, yes, you could have, but it would have been on a Monday, Tuesday night versus a Friday or Saturday
Right.
night.
Right. Exactly.
Like once again, like we could go on and on.
People don't understand that part because they don't actually. Maybe that's why
they don't do it. Right.
Maybe that's why they had to put us through the ringer, right? So that
Sure.
so we have to go through these things
To understand,
because a lot of
Mhm.
people just don't understand.
and that's fine because
Yeah.
It's understand.
us as
You just have to stay consistent.
right, and we've learned that just through
Mhm.
through these twists and turns and
Yeah.
these treacherous waters of, as you said, people's emotions.
Oh yes.
People reacting, and we understand, like, because,
Mhm.
like you said, we're humans, we're emotional creatures. We understand
Right.
that, but like,
Right.
understand that business needs to be taken care of as well. So let's
Right.
talk it out. Unless you want to just retreat within yourself and just, just be mad at the world around
Right.
you. So
Yeah. I would say in my experience, like I'm the first person to be open to a reconciliation if I've ever like fallen out with someone over production. And granted, there are some people that like I need to make the first move. So like I'm not saying it's all other people's fault, but like, you know,
Do you
I
have
will
an
always have
example?
I have many examples, but like I would
I mean,
always,
like one,
you know,
nothing too specific, but like
uh,
talking about just like, let's say,
yeah,
what was
yeah.
the misunderstanding?
Like, what was
Sure.
that?
I mean, sometimes misunderstandings always come back to money, like always, especially what you're talking about. I
Right.
want to say 90% of these misunderstandings come
Sure.
back to money. We had a situation one time where somebody was wanting to collaborate with us and they put a price on it and wanted to fundraise that money, but then did not quite understand that the onus was on them because they decided to put a price tag on their show, which is not something my company does mostly
Mhm.
for things, because it's just like you guys with your shows. It's, you know, people buy tickets, we divide up the ticket money, and that's it. Like we're not sitting on like $1 million in the bank, not at all. And
Yeah, I
so,
wish.
you know, so if you, yeah, I wish. So if you're going to put a price tag on your show and suggest that we need to raise money, it's kind of, you're kind of the lead. And so when that didn't pan out, all of a sudden it became our fault that like
Wow.
we didn't provide the
Yeah.
resources, we didn't, you know, do whatever. And like, you know,
Mhm.
we'll get into the story another day, you know,
Sure.
when we're off mic,
Yeah.
but it was like
Yeah.
it was a lot. And so I still haven't spoken to that person up to now, and that was like almost 5 years ago. But if that
Yeah.
person was ever to be like, I would love to talk about something else or like just start over, I would be okay with it, because I'd be like, okay, that was
Yeah.
5 years ago. We don't need to dwell on that, like whatever. But I do know now, like I'm smarter. Like I will
You know
remember
better.
that. I know better. So chances are, if that person did come to me and say, you know, I want to forget that and move forward, I, also being a Virgo, would be like, here's a 100-foot ladder for you to fly over. And then you tell you, when I see you do that, then I'll probably trust you again. But like, since
Right.
you probably can't, I probably won't be okay with it. But I'll be your friend, like in
Sure.
life, like I'll be nice to you. But in terms of
Yeah.
artistic
Yeah, we'll be all right.
collaboration, like
Don't need
that's
to
done.
don't need to
Yeah,
work.
we don't need to hate each other, but we just don't need to work together. But
Yeah.
so yeah, and so back into the pandemic talk, it's just like you're learning that about people in terms of in this period of time, in terms of
Oh
collaboration. And
man.
people
Absolutely.
forget that, and I don't know if you agree with me or not, but there's a really big sense of entitlement in the artistic community too, especially when it
Mhm.
comes to hard times like now. People will use that entitlement to say, well, because there are less jobs, I should be booked first because I'm XYZ. And
Hmm.
it's kind of like, no, I think we've all gone back to zero now, and you work with people you like to
Yeah.
work with. And, you know, you kind of have to realize that, you know, we're all starting from the bottom again.
Mhm.
And, you know, whatever credentials you had before this period matter less, and
Right.
actually are not why we book people now.
Mhm.
Yes, it's nice to know if you had like a long storied career, but I feel like the importance now, especially like with things like your social network, it's like we're talking and booking people because they're genuinely there to push our industry forward,
Right.
and to collaborate and to meet new people and to figure out new ways
Right.
to be in this industry. But if somebody's sitting there hanging on to the old times and the past and whatever, like that, you know, when did hanging on to the past ever make the future better? Like,
Right.
you know,
Amen.
so you just have to sit in the moment. And so I think that's exactly what you guys are doing, and you're pushing forward with new programming and, you know, new ideas, and you're
Yeah.
finding the people that support it. And that's kind of, at least the lesson that I took from the pandemic, is like, you make new ideas and you stick with the people who support the new ideas. And if somebody doesn't support the new idea, either they need to be brought to the light, or they're doing it on purpose. You know, they're trying to keep to the whatever the old structure was. But who knows? That's, you have to each their own, right? But you find new people, and as each year goes on. So while the pandemic is a small period of time and compared to the larger period that is our lives, it made like a huge change. And
For
so
sure.
Definitely a
For
shift
everybody.
on how things are
Especially everything
are
that
done.
we do. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
we as people.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that's just out of necessity, to be honest.
Right. Like I think people and companies are pivoting because are forced to. And I think how a company handles that says a lot about it. And even if it
Correct.
means taking a break. Like, I know you guys were talking about possibly just shutting down for a while, and and you were totally open to doing that. But I think this is the funniest thing about being producers is that, and I did the same thing. As soon as you put it out in the universe, like, I'm going to take a break, 10 people come to your door and they're like, hey,
No,
like,
absolutely.
here's this, and this. And like, what are your thoughts on that? And, even if it's just asking for advice, like, I think that's the beauty of being a producer, is that you don't stop working even if you want to, because people now know that you're the place to go. So, which is what happened to you guys. Like, you wanted to take a break, but then your community was like, actually, that's not going to happen. We have many ideas for you, and like, we know that you guys can do it because
True.
you've proven it. You've proven that you can do it. So I want to call out the myth where people, and they make fun of it on like comedy shows with like famous people who are like, oh, I just need to take a break. I need to recharge and like just, take some time for me. But like, and then they end up doing 20 other things. And they're like, I don't know why, like almost like a Kris Jenner. Like, I don't know why, I'm just so busy all the time. And they make fun of that. But the truth of the matter is, that's true. Like, it's true. Like, that happens. Like, people aren't trying to be extra. Like, you really, can't take a break unless you really truly like turn off your phone and close your windows and hide. Like, like people will find you. So
even just trying to reconcile our schedules to do this, because we've been wanting to do this interview with you for a moment.
I know.
I'm sorry.
It's just everything
no.
that is going on around.
You're good.
Even like we're on another call very soon, as a matter of fact. Right?
Yeah. And so I think, what the audience needs to know is, like, in the kind of time that we've known each other, we're now back, we've come full circle and we're now collaborating again. So like with the three of us, at least, I'm finding ways to support your social network. And then like after that, I've pulled these guys into a huge festival that is coming together that's going to celebrate Filipino culture and Filipino arts and whatever, everything Filipino.
Are we allowed
that's
to
coming?
talk about it or say the name?
I don't know.
Right,
Weirdly enough. Let's keep it under wraps. But
now.
let's just tell people, follow all of our social medias that we'll talk about at the end of this episode, and you'll find out in June.
Major announcement.
Yeah, you'll find out in June what this festival will be. I'll tell you, it's a festival, that's going to be a Filipino thing. So, and we're involved. So that should be reason enough just to stay on top of it.
Hey, it's JD from the Hyman Podcast. I created this podcast to have hard conversations. Conversations that make us human but are also wildly uncomfortable. Conversations that help give voice to the voiceless and to the marginalized. Now you can listen to the entire first season on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Consider this your personal invitation to join the conversation.
It's not a rumor, it's the truth. Ray Guy and Roder are back together again with the R&R podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. We're going to talk Browns. We're going to talk Cavs, Indians, even if they're not playing well, which might happen. We're going to talk monsters. We're going to talk college football. You name it. When it comes to sports, Ray Guy and Rhoda, we're going to break it down for you as only we can. So make sure you join us right here on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Spit that lyrical, the anti-typical type sound. Spit that lyrical, the anti-typical type sound. Spit that lyrical, the anti-typical type sound. Spit that, spit that, spit that.
Of course, this is I Speak and LA Stone of S.N.R.G.music.com, and you're listening to Producing While Asian.
So I would say now, in the more kind of career, like if this were an interview question, like from the two of you guys, and you can answer individually or together or however you want, if a young person came up to you guys and say they're either AAPI or Filipino or whatever, what are the kind of top 3 pieces of advice you would impart on a young Asian person or a young Filipino person who's like, I think I want to go into producing, or I think I want to start something original, but I don't know what to do. Like, and I'm not asking for warnings. I'm just asking, like, what's kind of 3 things that you wish somebody would have told you when you were, 22. What would you say to them?
I would probably treat answering this question by really trying to figure out what I would have told my younger self instead of,
Yeah,
I would
that
first
works.
tell my younger self to not be so timid with following your vision.
Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid to put yourself out there, all the way out there, no matter what that is. If we're talking from a producer standpoint, sometimes the world needs somebody or someone different or something different to break through all the noise. So I would strongly advise the youth or any creative or any individual who wants to get into, or if they have a vision, if they see something, just to find ways to make that happen, however that looks. And don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone or do something out of the box or something unconventional to make that come about. Because I think, especially being Asian American, Filipino American, I think by default, we are taught at a very young age what you're supposed to do or what your path you're supposed to follow.
That's something I still have thoughts about, like how they teach us to be respectful and stuff like that. Like and manners are good and all that. But I remember it was to a point of as a kid growing up, it was to a point of fault.
I actually limited.
I felt limited because these people would be talking shit to me. I'd be like, oh, okay, I just accept it because they're older. You know what I mean? So,
right, and who's to say that those before us know any better, right?
I didn't know that before. But that's definitely something I'd want to impart is don't be afraid of being what you are before. And
don't get it twisted. You should listen to those who came before you, but
don't be afraid.
Of course,
proud of it.
Right.
Know your worth.
Yeah.
That's most important. Know your worth. Know value. Really take
you're special.
Right. Take that time, especially when you have youth on your side, to try different things, to figure out what you're good at. Because I think it's really important not only to figure out what you're good at, but what you aren't good at. Right. Once you identify your limitations, it's easier to find ways around them, or at least that's when you can connect with, as you said, the other people within your network or your community to maybe help you overcome certain, sanctions or roadblocks. There are different ways.
Because as a producer, you hire the people that do the things you don't know how to do. And so you get to people.
Very well articulated.
And I think, there's a combination of what you both just said. That's you should definitely be, outright and proud about your beliefs and what you want and what your vision is. But you can definitely put that out there in a respectful way. You don't have to be offensive about it. You don't have to be in people's faces, and people will want to collaborate with you. And I agree with both of your pieces of advice. I definitely wish I could say that to myself 10 years ago. Because it's also, audience, we're not old people. So, we're not 50-year-olds. we're in the middle of our careers. So we're still in it. So when we talk about advice, we talk about people that are just a door knock younger than us. So we're not
but
old.
Honestly, I wish just because of the things that we're doing now with your social network, if there was something like this that existed for us, when we just started 10 years ago, oh my, I just feel especially with the way that everything is now with social media and this, everything that's been going on in terms of streaming, man. Right. So I just wish that we had somebody to kind of show us the upside of doing something like this, because we've been very private individuals. That's another thing. That's another piece of advice. If you really want to,
if you want to do this, you have to understand this. You have to put more out.
You have to be a little bit, not to say that you have to be all the way, just put everything out there, but you definitely need to be a little bit more open to not just criticism, but also just you yourself, be willing to share a little bit more to really receive that reciprocated type of collaborative effort or collaborative opportunity.
But be smart about it though. Like, we're looking for like your genuine,
Yeah, be smart
your
about it.
genuine.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're looking for your
extra bonus
genuine
advice.
like
Don't be
soul. Don't be
silly
dumb
with it.
about it. Like we're looking
Yeah.
for what we were talking about it. Like your like show your soul, but pardon my French, don't show your ass. Like we're not
Right.
like we
Yeah.
want to know who you are, but we
Oh
don't want
man,
to see terrible things. So
we should probably reserve this conversation from either another episode but like the people that we've met along the way. I oh man, and that's another bonus piece of advice. Don't be so trusting of
yeah,
what people say they are, because everybody talks
Mhm.
a great game. Everybody talks a good
Everyone
game.
embellishes. Yeah.
Man, I'll tell you what. Like my brother and I we have our own list of
Disappointment.
False promises.
But it's funny because we come from a world where, okay, because if we're talking about our whole story, when we first started, we were kind of injected into the scene like right away, and we knew a lot of the movers and shakers in Manila, and of course Manila being kind of just the media, epicenter of, even Asia at the time, because ABS-CBN was the broadcast, juggernaut, just the powerhouse of Asia, Southeast Asia,
for sure.
right? So, and then of course them being the Filipino channel. So we knew the people, the influential individuals, both, on the executive side, but like, on cam side. So then you are introduced to these people who are influential, right? Before the influencer that you see today, like we're talking about like superstars that you would see,
like Friendster,
right. But then all of a sudden, you like through trying to just do things on your own, you encounter certain individuals that, okay, when they come and tell you, oh, I know such and such, or I can do this, I can do that, you kind of believe it because you've seen it, like really executed. But then, as my brother said, you get disappointed because you were just a little too trusting.
You're trusting, right? There's a lot of situations where you go through and you get a lot of air, a lot of, and what Filipino people will say is, people that are mahangin and, that just like puff up their chest and make themselves seem they're everything that you need. And then really they just are all talk, all air. And so I'm sure we've all encountered those people and can talk for days about those experiences. But yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate that advice. And I'm sure there's plenty that are listening that are looking for that. And, in this time, I feel like the pandemic also kind of helped us do what you're describing, like creating those resources for the younger versions of ourselves that are out there trying to figure it out. Because, and not to touch on a sad topic, but it's relevant, kind of the discrimination and hate that's coming toward the Asian community right now. I think what we're doing by being loud, by doing shows like Producing While Asian, by doing shows like Your Social Network that's produced by two Filipino brothers, like, we're showing the world that we're here, A, B, we belong here, and C, that like we're now going to help the next generation feel that too, because not to say that nobody did it for us, but people weren't loud enough for us. And so,
and
what do you think about that?
Despite all the people who have broken through, we're still underrepresented.
Right. So I think we're all doing our part trying to change that demographic, because that's why the show exists. I'm here to help talk with people like yourselves that are voices that are ones that need to be heard in the community to uplift the entire AAPI experience and to show people that aren't like us that we're here and we do this stuff too. Like James Cameron is not the only one that can make movies about sunken ships, all that kind of stuff. So I appreciate that you guys are here on the show, especially and that for the second time talking to me on the blog. I really hope that we'll have more conversations like this to help inspire and promote too. Like, I love that you guys shouted out all the people you've collaborated with in this short hour that we've been together, because people that don't do that. And, I'm not shaming them, but, appreciate your collaborators and the people that help make your stuff happen. So given
You
that,
can't get to where you're going without knowing where you're from. You already know.
right. And so given that, for people that want to follow you or know where you are, or even reach out to collaborate with you, tell us all the places. Where can they reach out to S.N.R.G? Where can they learn about your social network? Just list it all here.
Well, let's start off by saying you can connect with the Super Bar Brothers, I Speak, and LA Stone at snrgmusic.com. You can follow us at S.N.R.G Music. Mike said it, at your social network.
Your soul shall network.
Your soul shall network. Remember that. And yeah, just if you're an artist out there that, you don't have to be, of course, we focus on the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area, but we've had folks fly in from Texas, drive up from North Carolina, and drive down from New York. So, as long as you can get to Crescendo Studios in Falls Church, Virginia, we got you. So those are the best places to connect with us. And please, keep supporting Don Mike and his efforts.
Just stay connected with Don Mike. Stay in touch with us.
That's true. That is very true.
I will, of course. So don't worry, guys. We'll have more episodes together talking about many more things in the future. This is just the beginning.
Absolutely.
And, here in season 1 of Producing While Asian. So yeah, thanks again, guys.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody that continues to strive towards their vision.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Producing While Asian podcast. Our theme song was created by Luckstock. We are produced by Press Play Podcast, and the show is edited by Michael Santos Sandoval. If you have a moment, please leave a review and a rating, and be sure to send us any topic ideas you have to producingwhileasian@gmail.com. To follow us, stay updated, and read our blog, visit www.producingwhileasian.com. We hope you join us again soon.